Thank you so much, Esther, for the opportunity. I'm Kenneth Mubea with Digital Africa the last 4 or 5 years. So for the context of this meeting is just to tell you that the program started as Africa Regional Data Cube as a pilot program, and it started in May 2018, and it was led by the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, which is a program under the United Nations Foundations. They're based in DC and New York. And this particular program now, the CEO was sitting in London, and we are based in Africa. So in that particular context, I came on board 2019 to support some of the work because they wanted someone on the ground in terms of GIS technical manager was the role I got. And previously I was working here at Regional Center for Mapping as in a program called SAVIR, the USA NASA program and initiative. So the DU Africa now was actually now scaling up the work that was done by the Africa Regional Data Cube, because then the Data Cube was only focusing on 5 countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Senegal. And there were quite some demands in those countries. So the narrative was why those 5 countries was because all of these are connected through the high-level political forum, which HIPLF, which is always hosted by the UN Secretariat in New York. So it gives you an idea whenever those ministries, governments meet, the need for data. So this was then championed then for them because they are getting data from NASA as well as the European Space Agency. So it was very nice to support the national statistics as well as the government as a priority. So the engagements in Kenya was more so closely led by the Kenya Space Agency, who are the mandate of any Earth observation, just to give you the context, so that you can't just start discussions without Earth observation without mentioning the Kenya Space Agency or KSA. So those engagements meant that we had to do some trainings and engagements in Kenya with the launch also of the Africa Data Cube in May 2018, as well as another launch again in 2019, which was more focused. And this activity was led by the Office of the Deputy President, who's currently our president now. And the Kenya Space Agency is still domiciled in the Ministry of Defense. So there was a lot of diplomacy as well as bringing the stakeholders. So long story short, we identified a champion at the Northland Rangeland Trust. It's called Mohammed Shibia. So having engaged with him, and in my previous role, I somehow engaged with the conservancies in Isiolo and others through the USAID programs, was that these areas are coupled by climate change. So one of the visits we had, like in May 2018, you could see January, there was still clouds and rains. And all the Januaries, we know it's dry up to April, some late rains in April or March. So every year it's a little bit diverse. And those engagements then with those conservancies, we could see that they try to come as a community to guide where they can have their grazing. But then there's also other aspect of wildlife. So the program now with the Data Cube, they were like, wow, we can just come here, click, and even do a training. So for example, just looking at Mohammed Shibia doing a demonstration on his laptop, showing them that actually we have our livestock here, and then we'll do the rehoming of the giraffes based on what we've seen from the Africa images. There are quite some floods, so we need to move them into a safe sanctuary. So they identified some area which was set aside by the community, because also these communities believe in the peaceful coexistence with the giraffes. And the other history that you need to know about the local language of this story is that they cannot poach giraffes or eat giraffes because of their historical knowledge. Same knowledge I'll share with you in context of Somali and Somaliland. Like in Mandera, Wajir, they have the white giraffes, and based on the histories of their grandparents, you cannot poach such animals. So the context on now of Lake Baringo and the conservancy, it was more specifically now the community is very concerned about as well as the welfare of the giraffes, and the relocation meant monitoring with the Kenya Wildlife Service. There's certain trends. And what we saw the last 3, 10, 8 years was that you could see an assessment of water, and in the middle, on the first one, actually in the middle, you could see the change of the vegetation. So it meant every year, September, we had floods, and around the same time we had COVID. September 2020, it was actually one of the largest flood events, where even if you're in Lake Baringo, you could confuse another lake, which is south, called Lake 94, that those two lakes have actually merged. So the context of climate change. So it means after every floods, there's a recession, there's also drought. So the communities are quite very careful. So with this knowledge now, based on what we had with Mohammed Shibia, we developed some tools that he could use, just having access to the platform, free training on the platform, as well as getting to know that what functionalities and opportunities we have. So we actually realized that he had gotten some support from another USAID program, but they just gave them an idea of the tools that he might require. So he was really looking for a platform that can just provide that service in quite a snapshot, as well as an enabler for him to do the actual field work, as well as convince the community because of their local knowledge. So with this means that sometimes you're even forced to print hard copy maps to actually go down and work with the communities. This is the same case with most conservancies in northern Kenya. Then you have to sit like in Marsabit or in Mandera, Wajir. You have to have a community-driven solution. And that's why in the narrative we say fit for purpose. So that we have the background that there's a lot of ownership. So looking at Northland Rental Trust, there has been some challenges like accessing this data. They also had another challenge of some weeds, which are called proposis around Lake Baringo. And also with the platform, we were able to see where they are and how they can actually mitigate that. And out of these engagements, also we came up with a connection with someone who was doing his PhD somewhere in Austria, also provide some of his results for like validation. So it means Digital Africa is a platform enabling the things within Africa, as well as the scientists based on where they are coming from. Most of the stakeholders who are using the platform, actually even students or professors actually in Europe or South America or anywhere, but they find a resource where they can actually get information and get some results and answers, and even interact with us as a Digital Africa team to actually see where we can support them. And even others asking for the same platform for their continent. So it means it's an enabler to actually help open opportunities for everybody, even including WILDLABS, so that they share some of the lessons learned from this platform. So some of the lessons we learned from these engagements is that it takes some time because there's a need to understand and also packaging of the information. And that's when this packaging, we were able to package it in a nice way that governments are engaged, the conservancies are engaged, the communities, and even as you watch the video that I've shared on the link, you'll actually see there's a kind of a flow that it even ended up on the BBC in terms of nature conservation. So it gives you a flow that whatever work we are doing, even at WILDLABS, one day, once we continue working with more partners and scaling up, you'll get visibility as well as from God, who gives us the strength and energy to continue every day. So as part of that, just a summary, and I was trying to give you a context of the engagement with Digital Africa and the Africa Regional Data Cube, which was part of that. Actually, we started the engagement with Mohammed Shibia through another program where we were looking at getting safe habitats for the rhinos in a conservancy called Ngwesi. And we developed a tool together with a person. As much as the tool I could show you later in a platform called Sandbox, it means that co-development or whatever we do at Digital Africa means that everyone is important, and the feedback is what actually gives us the opportunity to provide the tools which are fit for purpose. So in this particular case, since it's I know with your time and short time, it's just to give you an opportunity of what we call a use case, and this specifically was now for the case of working with Mohammed closely. So we developed something for the Baringo, which was similar to what we used for the creating safe habitats for the rhinos as well. So it's more of a summary, layman terms, is to get the vegetation phenology from space to see how the trends have changed, because then we have climate change. Then I've told you about the seasons sometimes are delayed, Like now we expect El Nino, so it means we have to prepare, working closely with meteorology institutions. Then also mapping the water from time, you could see the changes from in the Lake Baringo, and also getting the level of vegetation per parcel of land, so that they can actually know, oh, these animals can be only here for a month. Then you move them to another paddock in case you've tried some farming in your leisure time or some ideas. So in this particular summary, we summarized all the work we were doing. We had our champion, who was a top scientist at NASA called Dr. Brian Kilo. However, he retired last year, but had the amazing opportunity of working with him the last 4 or 5 years, and his passion for providing the solutions. And also, as you can see, he was based at the NASA Langley Research Center in Virginia, where I was able to visit him and see the kind of work they were doing. And all of this was previously with my previous colleagues at the Global Partnership for Sustainable Data, GPSTD, whom their mandate is to provide better data for better decisions, and thus better lives. It's a program under the UN Foundation. Over to you for any question, Esther.
I mean, wow, that's an amazing presentation. And I think, this platform is really new age. When you think about the new challenges that conservationists are facing, it has to do with climate events and climate crisis, like you're talking about, being able to see changes in ecosystems. We are facing new challenges that are affecting wildlife and biodiversity. And, in this time that we're in, we do need tools that allow us to look at the changing ecosystem patterns, like you've let us know about Lake Baringo, levels rising, vegetation changes as well, and being able also to see what are the solutions. Not just seeing what the problem actually is, but also being able to use the platform to see, okay, where can we move the wildlife to if this area is no longer the right space for them to be in. So I think it's a really, really great tool for conservationists, but also conservation technologists that are looking for tools to help them come up with solutions for specific wildlife monitoring challenges they're facing, or even wildlife protection solutions they're coming up with. And so I think maybe what I can ask is, our platform has conservationists and of course conservation technologists. And for somebody who's starting out, exploring your platform, which tools do you think would be the best for them to get started with for monitoring using Earth observation and satellite tools? What would you recommend them to start off with? I know you do have a lot of trainings as well on the platform and courses that they can do, but from your personal perspective and advice, where do you think that you should start off with on your platform?
I think the first part is to actually contact us, regardless of which manner is possible. For example, they could have our contacts, etc. And also looking at our website, we have where we can actually access the platform, and we've made it very easy. It's just made for fit for purpose. So, for example, discussions with Esther today could mean that we just go to the Digital South Africa map, and from here we could just do the same for Baringo and just see if I was empowering you as a journalist today, you'll be able to compare and give the scenario for example, Lake Baringo. So in this particular case, you could add the data on the water just to see how it has changed every year. Because this context sometimes, even we are not born, sometimes it's like over 35 years. So it means, yeah, you can even change the dates to go, oh, 1990, maybe when you were born. You can see the situation, how it was. And even you can move to different dates. So it also depends on the internet connectivity. For example, I could just move to a recent imagery of 2000s, just before, yeah. The situation could have been different, different times, because what I know, they used to complain of droughts. And I remember one of the ministers made a comment that since guys around this area have experiencing drought, why not change their livelihoods and start eating rats? And in our communities, it's like a taboo. So for this case, you just do a comparison of the data and actually see in the early, what I remember, engagements with someone from the region who was telling me, who was living around Baringo, was telling me in the 1990s, things were a little bit different. And in the 2000s, slightly. So if you tied to some geological events, we had tremors in 1998. Around the same time, we had those floods, September. So it means there's some kind of developments, and with this one, you can even share a story and start sharing your story. And then when you finish, you can share with your friends and share a link on WhatsApp or whichever platform. So the Digital Africa is really democratizing the access to data, validation of information. There we have people using it for different purposes. For example, today you are calling from a conservancy, so you'll be interested to know how the vegetation has changed over time. So we provide cloud-free mosaics from Sentinel-2 European space imageries. And here, when you change some of the indices like vegetation index to give you a feel of how things are being, from green, very nice areas like the forest, even the Mau forest around in some of the regions you could see. And all this is also tied to your local knowledge. So it's based on any research that you would like to do. For example, you will come to this forest and see how the scenario is, and you see the area has been a little bit dry, and also coupled with the vegetation and also urbanization, you can choose to do also comparison different years and see how the situation was. How was it in 2017? These are just yearly assessments, quite useful for conservancies. Just the other day, a colleague of mine from Tanzania National Bureau of Statistics was asking me, oh, how can we check? They were trying to relocate some people in Ngorongoro Conservancy, for example. And as you know, it can be political because of the different communities who've lived their whole life. So whenever you do this work, just the caveat of the work and the communities and the coexistence and how very careful to handle some of the matters. So the case of Ngorongoro has been of concern because of the catchment, and as well as the importance to the government. Even just the other day, our president was at Narok Conservancy and sharing how Narok and they could share their resources. So all these are based on, as you can see, okay, so for Ngorongoro, you can just change the image to a normal image. So that now you can see how the situation is between 2 years. So this is 2022 and 2018. You can see how the scenario is. And since you're very curious, you might ask, oh, how about an image of like recent? So you can actually add it on the map. And once you add it, you just see that there are images every 5 days. And the other caveat is cloud cover. So it's just navigating around the seasons and times. So this is an image covered 21st this week, Monday. And you can look at another image captured maybe the other 5 days before, and etc., etc. So these are data from the European Space Agency at 10 meters, impactful for governments to make decisions. And if there's a mini cover, if there's a challenge with the clouds, we also have the radar data, which is from European Space Agency at 10 meters. This gives us an idea of the vegetation, the changes in the water, and it's available at 10 meters. As you can see, we're able to see different features at different angles. And this one, you can even see how it's changing. And the other best part is that we could have a small background because of the limited time some of our researchers have. They would like to do assessments. They would like to have a background image as well, such as this one, like a Lake Nyasi in the background. So we could add the other imagery on top. Then you just change the opacity level so that you can actually see, let me just change it here. So you can actually change what is in the background, gives you an idea, visualization, and all these things you did in less than 1 minute and empowering everyone in the continent. So back to you, moderator.
Wow, Dr. Ken, this is really great. And I think that the key things that are emerging from this is it's a great tool for decision making. And I think that those are one of the key aims for this platform to be able to help people make better informed decisions as they have a full scope of the information and the data that's out there, right? It's great for research as well. But I think in regards to right now, I think as tech is evolving, we have, of course, AI being the main conversation right now. How do you see this technology being able to be advanced to a point where it can help us um, in issues even of prevention, just like the case study that you just explained to us? How can we be able to use this tech in a more advanced way, or how do you feel this tech can be advanced further to help us as the climate crisis continues, of course, developing, and the threats and the risk to our wildlife and biodiversity are enhanced? Is there a way that we can integrate this with other technologies to help us make even more informed decisions?
Yes, these opportunities, especially when we are talking about conservancies, we are talking about trends in vegetation. And as a colleague of mine who just finished his PhD in Australia, they developed a tool which could help look at forecasting of vegetation. So this one, we've tried piloting it somewhere else. So this was a PhD done in Zimbabwe, where they were actually predicting the vegetation in the next like 2 months. And there's something now we are even coupling it with another professor in the University of Johannesburg to provide 3 months in advance. And for that particular professor, is very ambitious because he wants to do the whole assessments for this program, which is called Restoration for Africa, where they're building the Green Wall Initiative, which goes like, many miles and kilometers. So Hube is using our platform to provide those estimates at that level. And it's part of the vegetation index climatology. So we're providing something which is forecast based on some particular model, just to guide governments on what is possible. And then now with artificial intelligence is to provide those scenarios, as well as coupled with more weather information from the context of East Africa, working closely with the IGAD mission, which has an office in Nairobi for ICPAC, for providing early warning and assessments. So once that is coupled to molded, it gives some rainfall information that can guide. Then also we know with climate change, some of the situations are a little bit abrupt, like with El Nino. So it will be like a disaster, but it will mean people have to do some kind of advancements or adjustments. So like in the case of Baringo, we mentioned every September there's an extreme weather event, and just in a few weeks we'll see that. So it's also helping governments to be agile enough to cope and mitigation. So AI is about one day at a time.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing also a brief demo and tutorial of how the platform actually functions. I think that is something that people would really appreciate, seeing the multifunctionality of it and the different things that you can actually see, and how you can compare data across. I think that is something people will really appreciate as they come in and compare the data sets, and as they do research, and also as they come up with conservation solutions. But yes, I think from our end, it's just thank you so much again for making time, speaking with us, sharing information on how your platform has been used to solve conservation related challenges, and how it can be used by conservationists and conservation technologists to also come up with solutions, do more research, and solve the challenges that they're facing now, and especially the challenges that have been exacerbated because of the climate crisis. I think the Digital Earth, the Africa platform, really serves as a kind of new age informative space that is bridging sustainability and tech. And I think it's really ideal for conservationists, and especially across East Africa. So thank you for making time, and I'm sure the community at WildLabs would appreciate this talk, and also the information that you've shared. And I'm looking forward to majority of them coming onto the platform and seeing what it has to offer their organizations or their individual research.
Thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to connecting with the partners